All right, welcome back and happy week 2, Mizzou fans. I am Gabe DeArmond. This is the 573 report. The show has been renewed for a second episode because I was in charge of renewing it and I decided we would do it again. We have learned some new tricks over the last 7 days. There you go. That's the extent of my technical knowledge. I can make an applause sound. So if we hit a dead period, I might just do that. And on the Skype line, we need to get this sponsored at some point.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for that. We're looking for a sponsor for the Skype line and a sponsor for my studio, also known as my bedroom. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need Mitch's bedroom sponsored on this show, but hey, it is what it is. We've already got a few people online and got a few comments rolling in and questions, and mostly on this show, that's what we're gonna do is let you guys kind of guide the ship and take your questions, give you answers and stuff. But week 1. Alabama 38, Missouri 19. I don't know. I've been doing this for like 17 years now. And Mitch, I always say it's my job when people are too low, I kind of try to pull them up a little bit. And when they're too high, I kind of try to drag them down a little bit. And while I do understand why Missouri fans are overall fairly pleased with week 1 because I understand that, I also think we've got to admit that game was over about 19 minutes into it.
Yeah, for sure. And not that that's a huge surprise. I mean, we all expected Alabama to win that game and win that game handily. They, are definitely one of the few best teams in the country this year, maybe the best, just more talented than Mizzou. It's interesting, watching that game and having, covered the past 2 seasons, I expected to come out of it having to kind of cheer people up. Like you said, be like, guys, this maybe wasn't that bad. We should have expected this. And it's kind of been the opposite. Not from everyone, but a lot of people are really encouraged. And there are things to be optimistic about. I mean, there was definitely a good portion of last season when you don't maybe think that team would have folded and lost 56-6 instead of scoring those late touchdowns, and there were some things to like with the new offense and all of that. But I think really I feel like we haven't learned much of anything. It's funny. We came into the week 1 saying, man, we don't know much about this team. We're going to learn so much, and then it was kind of exactly what we expected on a lot of different fronts. So yeah, well, I think this next coming week and really next few weeks will be a bit more revealing.
Right, because the truth is, it would be like throwing me on a track against Usain Bolt. Well, what you're going to learn is I'm significantly slower. But
Yeah.
you probably don't need to watch the race to know that. I mean, you knew that beforehand. So, this week is certainly going to be more telling, and we're going to talk about Tennessee and all that as time goes on. The plan is to be here about an hour. If questions, if comments, if things like that necessitate it, we'll stick around longer. There is no timetable. It's the internet. Want to point your attention to just a couple of things we'll have throughout the show. So right now, putting across the bottom of the screen, we've got all the SEC scores from last week, just to kind of refresh you on what happened in the league. That'll be scrolling for a while. We've also got the SEC schedule. I don't want to run those at the same time, obviously, but for this coming Saturday, we'll pop that up throughout the show and just kind of get you guys set up for what's going to happen this weekend. So, I mean, just boil it down to like 2 or 3 things. You came out of that game thinking what might be better than you think, what might not be as good as you thought.
Let's see. I was encouraged by the wide receivers, both in, for the most part, how they performed and also how they were used more so. Obviously there was a need to upgrade that position during the offseason. That was a high priority. The coaching staff went out and got 2 graduate transfers. There you go. There were some jitters there. Obviously, Damon Hazelton had some drops. He hadn't played very much in camp, so and Eli Drinkwitz basically chalked those up to not playing much in camp. Kiki Chism, post-game comments aside, he was a little bit quiet, but maybe Alabama kind of game planned against him, given some of the hype. But I mean, Jalen Knox looked a lot better than he did last season. He looks like he's in a better role. Barrett Bannister was steady. Punt return aside, Dom Jacinto made some plays. So I liked how that group was used. And I think, I was a little bit worried about Missouri's ability to, just have some guys who can make plays aside from the running backs. But I do think, assuming the offensive line holds up, the quarterback plays all right, you have that out of the receivers. The biggest concern takeaway has to be the pass rush. Now, I will say Ryan Walters, we talked to him today, and he basically said, whoa, guys. Alabama's got maybe the best offensive line in the country. Let's not overreact. I'm not too worried about it, is basically what he said. And to be fair, probably maybe their most impressive pass rusher, Trajan Jeffcoat, has only been back with the team for about a month and missed almost 2 years of football. So, he should only get better. But man, I mean, there was that stretch when Mac Jones had, I think it was 10 or 11 straight completions where no one was even touching him. He had all day. And, even though Alabama's receivers are the best in the country, there's not many teams in this league who you can let the receivers run around for 5, 6, 7 seconds and expect to cover them. So, I mean, that probably that needs to get better. But as Ryan Walters said, no reason to totally hit the panic button there yet.
Well, that kind of tied into what was better than I thought it would be, which was Missouri's defensive backfield. I mean, Jarvis Ware went down on second series of the game, I think, because Alabama had the 3-and-out. I think Ware
first quarter, though. I mean, it was within the first 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it got hurt on that next drive. So basically, 80% of the snaps were true freshman Ennis Rakestraw and redshirt freshman Ish Burdine at cornerback. And look, they gave up some plays, but I mean, those guys are going to make plays. Safety was, I'll be honest, I've written it myself. I've tried to tell people Josh Bledsoe and Tyree Gillespie are this great safety duo, but I always kind of thought I'm just writing that because people tell me that. And I don't know if I've seen it or believed it. Tyree Gillespie looked like a guy that could play for Alabama in that game. I mean, he looked like an NFL player. You throw Martez Manuel in as the third safety, Nick Bolton. So I agree. Defensive line, I don't know. Back seven, I'm kind of sold on from that game. I was pretty impressed. Offensively, I said this probably 6 times Saturday. I wish Larry Roundtree played on better teams because he is just he's a dude that I love to watch run and have since the day he got here. He runs so hard. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he's big enough and he's fast enough, and he always made yardage. I came out of that thinking I can see what Eli Drinkwitz wants to do on offense, and I like it, but it's not going to work against this team. I mean, Jalen Knox jet sweeps, speed options. I like it all. I like the ideas. I like the creativity. I like the motion, all that. Not against that defense. But to be fair, I'm not nitpicking play calling because I don't know what you call that does necessarily work consistently. But Missouri was not going to beat them to the edge.
Right. Yeah. No, that was apparent during the first quarter. And I think an adjustment that they sort of made as the game went on was a little bit more, north-south inside power type running action, less trying to get to the edge and a little bit more, downfield passing. So, yeah, I agree. But I think, yeah, like you said, it might just be a case of, this is how we're going to play. Even if it's not the best way to beat Alabama, we have had so few reps that we need to just play how we're going to play. And to your point on the back seven, man, Martez Manuel really impressed me. I knew he had to have been decent because he played in every game last season. I think he was the only true freshman to do that. But to come out and play, I think it was every defensive snapper. It was close. So to come out and do that, against Alabama, 3.5 tackles for loss, that obviously bodes well moving forward.
So let's jump into a couple of the questions and comments. I'm not going to take these in order, guys, because some of the Tennessee stuff we want to save for later. But I'm just going to kind of pop some of these up, and we did talk about this a little bit. Any injuries to report, and look, the truth is we don't really know for sure right now, but Jarvis Ware was hurt in the game. It was a knee. He got an MRI Sunday, and he is, as I forget if it was Dan Patrick or Keith Olbermann or whoever used to say, he's day-to-day, but aren't we all? Especially now. In 2020, we are literally all day-to-day. So Drinkowitz sounded like he hoped he could play on Saturday, but I don't think we really have any idea.
Yeah, not really. I will say, it was apparent kind of watching the game. You could tell they didn't think it was a super serious knee injury because he came out of the tent and got on the bike and biked for a little bit, like he was thinking about trying to warm it back up and go back in the game. Obviously, didn't do that. Hard to say, obviously, without getting more information than we have if he can come back in a week, but at least doesn't look like a long-term thing.
Yeah, and other than that, I think everybody's okay. I mean, some people were worried that Rakestraw was hurt. He was fine. The broadcast said at one point that Nick Bolton went to the injury tent, but he was fine post-game. So
yeah, I mean, no, he talked. I don't know. Without we usually get to watch a little bit of a Tuesday practice during the week and get a sense for who's out there. Obviously, without doing that, there could be someone who's totally off our radar who ended up hurt out of that game, who we missed. But no other in-game injuries that I saw of people who didn't return.
All right, so David wants to know, I saw a lot of positives out of Sean Robinson. He held the ball too long, inexcusable sacks taken, but he put the ball in about 5 or 6 tight windows for first down. So let's just start here. What you expected, Sean Robinson was better or worse than that on Saturday night?
Well, I'll say this: he was actually very similar to how he was billed, but I think he was probably a little bit better than expected. He was billed as a solid athlete with a good arm who's inconsistent. And that was sort of what I got out of it. Inconsistent just in kind of some of the decision making, especially. But I mean, especially after watching how he played down the stretch, I think you can definitely attribute some of the early struggles to just not having played football in almost 2 full years. He had a few misreads on the read option. He like David said, he held on to the ball too long, and he was the first to admit that after the game. He said, I got to throw some of those balls away. The pitch to Jalen Knox was just, trying to make a play when the team was down, and that's something that, you would hope, the type of mistake that isn't replicated. But I mean, I thought, he made some nice throws that deep out to Damon Hazelton in the red zone. I think it was a 3rd and 10. That was a very good throw. He hung in there and made a couple throws while he was getting hit. I was pretty impressed. I mean, I certainly, and this is kind of stealing your words. I know you've written this a few times throughout the week. I certainly don't think he did anything to lose the starting job. Clearly he came into the game as the starter, and I thought he was the better quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until Monday when I really started kind of looking at things, he had 1 incomplete pass in the second half, and it was a Daniel Parker dropped. I think it would have been a touchdown. I mean, you never know.
I think it almost certainly would have.
It
Daniel Parker's
like
not the fastest guy, but he would have walked in, I think.
Yeah, there was a guy that could theoretically have had an angle, but probably a touchdown pass. But it certainly should have been caught, even if it wasn't a touchdown. He was a better passer than I thought. I don't want to say he wasn't as good a runner as I thought, because I just don't know that you can judge him against that. I was actually talking to somebody a couple days ago who made a good comparison. Here's what we know. He's not Brad Smith as a runner, because in 2002, when Mitchell was like 4 or something like that, but Brad Smith as a redshirt freshman played Oklahoma, and Brad ran the ball on Oklahoma. Like, his speed translated. He had a couple hundred yards rushing in that game. And it was obvious, okay, he can run the football on the elite teams in the country. Sean Robinson, it doesn't quite translate against Alabama. Now, I think he's going to run the ball well this year, but it didn't work there. That also probably has a little bit to do with his offensive line. But I do need to real quick acknowledge the 573 report is brought to you by 573 Tees. That is a local company here in Columbia, 573tees.com. Check them out. They've got a 10% discount for Power Mizzou members, which you can actually access through the story on our website right now. This video you're probably watching live on YouTube, maybe through a message board link, whatever. But if you go to the story on our front page, there is a link to the 10% discount from 573tees at 573tees.com. They have maybe some Power Mizzou gear on the way, which we will certainly proudly wear at some point on the show this week. But we've been talking quarterbacks, And so what we want to do at this point, keep the comments rolling in, keep the questions rolling in, and we're going to catch up on those in about 10 minutes. But right now, we actually did have a chance to talk to Sean Robinson on Zoom yesterday afternoon, so we want to play that for you guys, and then we'll be back taking comments, questions till whenever they run out.
Hey, Sean, in talking with Eli, looks like he's going to continue to play both you and Connor. How does that kind of, approach or change your approach, if at all, knowing that there's going to be split reps as you move forward?
It doesn't change my approach at all. You got to prepare to play, and like he said, he's going to play both of us. So just whenever that time comes, just be ready for the opportunity.
Colin O'Brien, you're up next.
Sean, when you were on scout team last year, did your responsibilities, other than simulating the opposing quarterback, did you also do any game prep for Tennessee, and has any of that carried over, or is this all kind of new for you this year, preparing for Tennessee?
Game prep for Tennessee, as far as like game prepping for their defense while I'm going against.
Yeah, last year, or is that just completely not on your responsibilities?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. I mean, I tried to learn, the game plan from last year, but I didn't. I was strictly doing scout team.
Peter Ball from The Athletic, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Sean. I was just wondering what were kind of watching film, some of the bigger takeaways you had from your performance that maybe you didn't, I guess, know right after the game before you had a chance to analyze.
Okay, can you say that one more time?
Just like what were your biggest takeaways from the game after you had a chance to watch film?
Just executing better. It comes down to the little details, especially when you play teams that are as good as Alabama. It comes down to just doing the little things right. And if you don't do little things right, that's what gets you beat. So just cleaning up some things.
Dave Matter, Post-Dispatch, go ahead.
Hey, Sean, the preseason competition you had, how did that make you better? How did you benefit from that that's paying off now?
Yeah. You're talking about the QB competition? Yeah. I mean, iron sharpens iron, and having somebody just pressing on your heels all the time is always going to keep you sharp and keep you trying to get better. So it helped me a lot.
Jack Sobel, Man-Eater, go ahead.
Sean, both you and Coach Drinkwitz have discussed the need to execute better. What specifically on offense do you think needs to improve?
I mean, the main thing is execution. Like, I can just keep harping that, but that's really like the specific thing, just executing the play fully, getting the reads right, getting the blocks, all that stuff, just execute.
Mitch Forde, Power Mizzou, you're up.
One of the things that we saw obviously about this offense is that you all use the receivers in the running game, both in traditional ways with handoffs and tosses, but also kind of extensions of the running game with getting the ball out into the flat really quickly and stuff like that. I'm curious, what can that do for an offense to kind of, have those weapons that you can also incorporate into the running game along with running?
Yeah, just getting easy throws and just getting our guys in space and just letting them do what they do best with the ball in their hands. It's kind of what we like to do.
Andy Kimball, Missouri, go ahead.
Hi, Sean. I talked to Austin Carter-Samuels, who worked with you a lot last year, and he said that like the main goal for you guys was working on, I guess, your like personal improvement. Like what things kind of specifically did you really try to improve over the last year when you were kind of away on scout team?
Just improving as like an individual, like a human being, just like growing in all aspects of life. Really, that was just like the main focus of my off year, and obviously getting better as a quarterback, but just like, taking a year to get right and get good.
Yeah, I guess I guess also having somebody in Austin who went through that as a college player, how did that kind of help you get through that year?
It helped a lot because he knew exactly what I was going through. Like he was in a very similar position that I was in. So just having his guidance and wisdom helped a lot.
Eric Blum, Tribune.
It helped more than I can explain. It helped so much.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but you went to 3 different high schools in Texas, Then it was Gary Patterson at TCU. Then you learned under Derek Dooley-Barriodum last year, and now the Eli Drinkwitz offense. So 6 offenses in 8 years, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Does that give you an advantage to hop from system to system to system, or is that just as difficult as that seems?
I mean, you can look at it both ways. It's difficult, but like I'd say it could give someone an advantage. Just having like so many different viewpoints from different people and learning and taking pieces, it's been really cool just to learn so much different things from different individuals. So it's really, really cool.
Next up is Soichi Terada, Kansas City Star. Go ahead.
Hey, Sean. I was just wondering, how is it playing in this drink offense where he's not just aggressive with the play calls and everything, but he's also aggressive going up for it on fourth downs and all that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of take on his attitude, like the style, the way that he coaches and the way he calls plays. Obviously, I'm still learning it. It's just the first game, but it's been interesting so far.
Next up is Adam Cole, Missourian.
Hey, Sean. Kind of a two-part question. But in the first place, Jalen Knox's performance on Saturday, what stood out to you the most about his performance?
He's explosive with the ball in his hands. So we got to get him the ball.
And then kind of the second part of that, I think Mitchell kind of asked a little bit about it, but that position he plays, that slot role, how vital is that in your guys' passing attack and in the offense?
It's vital. We base out of 11 personnel, so he is like our slot guy. So he's moving and motioning. So he plays a big key in our offense.
Colin O'Brien, Jeff City.
Hey, Sean. Eli told us today that he noticed an immediate improvement in Connor's play from that first drive he had in the second quarter to finishing the game with that rushing touchdown. I was just curious, did you notice him getting more comfortable using his legs throughout fall camp, more confident, or as he was working his way back, or was that just kind of something that happened against Alabama?
I guess you could say that now that I think about it. Yeah, he's just been getting better and better.
Okay, next up is Dave Matters, St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey, Sean, as this offense kind of still comes together, how valuable is a guy like Larry who's been an established 1,000-yard rusher in this league? What does he mean to this offense?
He means a lot. In football in general, you got to be able to run the ball. And just having a guy who can run the ball and get us positive yards on every play, that's very important, especially in the SEC.
Jack Sobel from the Maneater.
John, with Damon Hazelton and Kiki Chism coming in as grad transfers, how's your connection with them been so far?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's all a work in progress, but I'm excited about it. Excited about those two.
Eric Blum, go ahead.
Hey, Sean, if I'm also correct, both of your parents have been coaches for a long time. Your mom coaches girls basketball, your dad's a football coach. What was it like being a coach's kid, and how did that shape your view as an athlete?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I feel like they coach me more than parent me. So, it just structured me and just gave me values. I feel like that helped me become the person I am today, and it helped me in the sports realm of things, dealing with coaches and stuff. Because I have parents for coaches, so it's been really cool.
Bennett Durando, Post-Dispatch.
Sean, sorry, it sounds like I'm just going down the list here with asking about different receivers, but Dom DeCinto, he sort of stood out in the second half on Saturday. I know. How well have you gotten to know him in your year plus here, and are there any sort of things about him or stories with him that stand out?
Oh, yeah, that's my dog. He's a good person, really good guy. Obviously, he can play on the field and do his thing. He's just a really good guy. If you ever get to meet him, he's a good guy. That's what stands out right away about him.
Soichi Terada, Kansas City Star.
John, you just talked about the running game. You got to establish that in football, but how do your legs factor into that and just have another weapon that the offense can use?
Yeah, I think my legs can be used in the run game for sure. yeah, I think that's definitely a component in our offense.
Andy Kimball.
Hey, Sean. I guess going back to last year, how I know you played a lot in high school and then started as a freshman at TCU. How beneficial was it to kind of have like the last year to kind of like take a break and catch your breath, I guess?
It was very beneficial. I got to learn a lot of things in football and just kind of try to elevate my game. So it was a really beneficial year.
And looks like we'll finish up with Jack Sobel. Go ahead.
John, on the touchdown to Beatty, it had the little play action and the wheel route. Was the wheel the goal of the play, or is that further down your progressions?
That was the main point of the play, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so Sean Robinson, look, man, happy guy. He smiled a lot. I'll say that for him. That's actually, well, I guess you guys got to talk to him after the game Saturday, Mitch, right? But that's the first time that I've talked to him. That's the first time a lot of us have talked to him this year.
Yeah, I talked to him in spring practice when he first showed up after he transferred from TCU, so a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah, back when we were allowed to talk to quarterbacks? I remember that.
Yeah. Other than that, we talked. I mean, and after the game, obviously, it was pretty brief. So, that's a little more expansive, still a little different being over Zoom. But, it's kind of weird to be at a time where we don't know the starting quarterback super well, but getting to know him better.
Yeah, so again, this is mostly now going to be focused on kind of taking your guys' comments, questions, and if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. I've actually said that in the last week, but this seems different. They're both good. Thoughts on playing two? Look, I think, and I don't mean this to disrespect Connor Bazelak. Like everything I've said this week, I think I've had to say I'm not saying Connor Bazelak isn't good and can't play, but I think it's pretty obvious who the starter is. Before the last drive, Sean Robinson had 56 snaps and Connor Bazelak had 5. That tells you who the starter on this team is. To me, Connor Bazelak is going to play a couple series every game for one very obvious reason. If your quarterback gets COVID or has to quarantine, you better have a guy who's been on the field going in to start that next game. I think if that aspect was removed from this, I think Sean Robinson takes every snap.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I definitely think, despite not listing a starter and Drinkwood saying he's going to rotate quarterbacks, I mean, Sean Robinson is the starter, and he's going to play the majority of snaps. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know if I can say definitively, like, if there wasn't COVID, maybe he still gives Connor Bazelak a series every now and again. Because, it's smart probably to give your backup some game reps, especially when, there wasn't really a much of an off season. But yes, I think that for the most part, the Connor Bazelak is going to get, one playing series in the second quarter, maybe 2, and then play mop up time. And that's about it, unless Sean Robinson's play vastly deteriorates or he gets injured or test positive.
I actually said something which hadn't occurred to me until actually I said it. That this is what I do. Like, I do these different shows and radio appearances, and I just kind of make things up as I go along. But it hadn't occurred to me. But do you think – I almost think Drinkwitz is doing – and not intentionally, but I almost think it's doing Sean Robinson a little bit of a disservice the way the depth chart is listed as – because, look, it was clear week 1 he wasn't going to tell us who the starting quarterback was beforehand, so we knew there was going to be an or. But there's still an or, and I think there will be an or all season long. And I think it feeds into a little bit fans saying, hey, what about this other guy? We need to see the backup more. We need to see the other guy more. And again, it's not that Bazelak was bad. I just think Robinson pretty clearly is the number one. And I understood the reason for it week 1, but I'm not sure I understand the reason to continue to do it going forward. And I kind of think maybe it's almost a disservice to your number one guy if he really is your number one guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid argument to make for sure. Robinson, I mean, he said the right things, when asked. Obviously, you saw there, does this impact his preparation? He said, no, not at all. It's still the same. You'd expect him to say that, but by cracking the window for Bazelak to play, to be listed as a co-starter, you are inviting, every time he has a bad series, fans to then say, well, what about the other guy? This guy we haven't seen screw up as much. Let's try to throw him out there. Now, does Sean Robinson hear that? I don't know. I mean, a lot of, despite what they might say, a lot of college kids do, hear some of the fan noise and social media stuff. Maybe he doesn't.
Do search their name on Twitter from the locker room after the game. Yes.
I've had too many random 3-hour tweets favorited by the person they were about to suggest otherwise. Yes. But yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, I definitely think that's a valid argument that could be the case.
Okay. So, just jumping around here in the comments, and you said something about what Sean Robinson said, so I want to go to this one, and it's not about what I'm drinking. Obviously, water. That's what I drink all the time. Any word on more follow-up with Chism? Heard he was unhappy after the game, and I was not. So, post-game, I was on Eli Drinkwitz's Zoom call. I jumped off, uploaded that, and immediately went to the post-game show. Mitch stayed on Zoom to talk to the players. So I'm just going to kind of let you explain what the quote was, what the situation was, and then what led to Eli Drinkwitz obviously expressing his unhappiness with, I'll just say us, because, look, it's just the media in general. Nobody needs to be singled out because, frankly, I think the question was fine.
Yeah, so as Gabe said, Eli Drinkwitz had his press conference, and then we got a little Zoom press conference with, I think it was like 6 different players, had each for between 1 and 4 minutes, real quick. And Kiki Chism was on there. He had 2 catches on 2 targets during the game. I don't believe he was targeted during the first half, and he was a little kind of, you could tell he was a little bit irritated. I mean, we've talked to him before. He's a very good quote. He was a little bit short, and I think towards the end, basically he was just asked, you weren't targeted as often at the beginning of the game, got some more looks your way towards the latter half. Is there anything you did differently to start giving yourself those opportunities? Not necessarily, in my mind, why weren't you targeted more? And he basically said, I thought I did everything I needed to do to get the ball, but I can't throw it to myself. That's a paraphrase, not a direct quote, but he did say, I can't throw the ball to myself. And so
it would be cool if he did, though.
Yeah, as Sean Robinson did it. We should point out
not
Sean
effectively,
Robinson
but he did do it.
Did complete a pass to himself and then threw it again, which you cannot do. But yes, but yeah. So that quote, not surprisingly, it made its way back to the head coach. I'm sure he was not thrilled to hear that, especially from a guy who's supposedly one of the leaders on the team. And then during his weekly press conference on Tuesday, Drinkwitz, took issue with it to us and said that he's the play caller, he should be asked those questions, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, which is again, look, this is fine. The coach can get mad at us if he wants, and that's cool. And again, not specifically us, a general media term. That's fine. He can show displeasure, and we can, it's going to happen. It happens everywhere. It particularly happens when teams lose games. Mitchell, just want to pop up a comment from your number one fan there. Bob Douglas says hello this week. Mitchell is the man.
I don't know who you are, Bob Douglas, but I guess thank you. Apparently we're pining for my presence on the game shows on Saturday.
For many hours, Bob Douglas wanted Mitchell to be on the show. Mitch, if you want to give him your Venmo, you never know, man. You might make some cash. So want to jump into one more that, look, it interests me. I don't know if it interests you guys, but I'm going to put one more up, and then we're going to transition more into Tennessee stuff. And Ron is asking, after watching the way you guys do interviews, how are you able to do stories and provide coverage that's different from everyone else? And so, like you guys saw, that Sean Robinson interview, I mean, that is literally the extent of our exposure to Sean Robinson between last Saturday night and next Saturday at 3:00 or whenever the game is. That's it. Everybody gets a question. There is time. I mean, nobody asked more than 2. I mean, we had Ryan Walters today. I think each of us got in 2 questions. A couple other guys got in 2, and some people got in 1. That's all you're going to get. So there's not a lot of like in-depth feature stories with the way things are set up right now, and the way I'm trying to do things that other people aren't doing on the beat is what you guys are watching now. Like, that's a big part of the reason we're doing it, is because nobody else does this, and because unique content, unique interviews are very difficult. I mean, Mitch, I know you've had a couple. You had a story on Kobe Whiteside of where you're talking to people that are obviously not involved with Mizzou football, but it takes that, because look, we don't think we're going to talk to position coaches all year long. I mean, we get Ryan Walters and the special teams coordinator, Eric Link, every Wednesday afternoon. So it's very difficult to do a story on the defensive end without talking to Brick Haley about him, or without talking to that kid, which we may not get to do. And I don't want any of this taken as complaints about the way they're doing things, whatever. A, they can do it however they want to. B, it's a worldwide pandemic and everybody's kind of different, and that's how it is. But it's kind of forced everybody to do things differently.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's challenging for sure to try to come up with unique content, because even the post game stuff. Yeah, everything's over Zoom. There used to be a time where you could kind of sneak over, and if you had a question for one person that you thought maybe someone else wouldn't have noticed, you can get it in before or after everyone else is done with that kid. So there's no more really of that, and occasionally the sports information people have been good enough to get me a couple one-on-one interviews, which is great. But aside from that, yeah, there's not going to be a lot of like feature type stuff. So, one thing I'll be trying to do at times, and I'll have a story that kind of in this vein tomorrow, is, doing more of a kind of analytical breakdown type pieces. We're watching a new offense, obviously, using some sort of more analytics services. We have Pro Football Focus, and there's a couple other sites to go a little bit more in depth on that. And then, we're bringing you Gabe's personality all day on Saturday. So no other site has that. That's easily worth your $10 a month.
I think you forgot. I think you forgot winning personality in there. I think was what you meant to say. But that was the advantage of a lot of times both of us being at games was when we're in the post game press conference, there would be a lot of times where it's like, all right, look, there's Roundtree and I don't know, a receiver on last year's team. I've forgotten who all the receivers on last year's teams were, but Yasir Durant. So you go talk to those guys. I'm just going to sit over here and I'm going to wait till Kelly Bryant comes in the room, and I'm going to be the first guy to go talk to Kelly Bryant. So I'm going to get maybe a quote out of him that everybody else doesn't have, because that's your whole goal in what we do, is to get something that everybody else doesn't have. And it's why I'm not going to games this year, because I can do computer interviews where everybody has the same stuff from my house. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and it's only going to work if you guys are here every week, every Wednesday, every Saturday. If you're participating, your comments, your questions, your phone calls post-game. I'm already dreading the 8 p.m. LSU kickoff where we are doing post-game at 2:15 in the morning, but whatever. We're going to be
you better
here.
Stock up on your Boulevard beard of choice for that week.
No question. Yeah, it better be a light one that week, because I'm going to wake up at 6:30 the next morning regardless, because that's when I wake up. So, but it's very reliant on you guys being here and participating. It's very reliant on our sponsors, 573Tees. Check them out at 573tees.com. Again, 10% discount for Power Mizzou subscribers on your first order. You go through the link on our site. It's in the story that is the top story on the site right now. Go to the front page, not the message board. Go to the front page where the 573 report is streaming live right now. Scroll down to the bottom there, and you can click on that discount from 573Tees. Thank them for sponsorship of this one. And now we're going to really jump into your guys' questions and comments. A lot of things about Tennessee week. Obviously, you guys look, last week happened. Nobody really wants to spend the entire week talking about it, so you're looking forward to next Saturday. What would a win on Saturday, Bradley asked, mean for Drinkwitz and this season as a whole? This is an upside week to me, right? This is a week where if they do go pull this off, all of a sudden you look at the rest of the season a little bit differently. They're 12-point underdogs. There's a reason they're 12-point underdogs. They're supposed to lose. They should lose. But And if they do, it's no big deal, as long as it's not 28-3 at halftime. But if they pull this off, all of a sudden you start looking at the rest of the year and going, hey, I can see one here and one there. But the mistake we always make is thinking one week affects the other. I heard it put really well. Going into the Monday Night Football game, everybody was judging the Chiefs and the Ravens based on how they'd played the first 2 weeks, when what you needed to look at was the Ravens blitz 80% of the time and Patrick Mahomes is going to murder the blitz. It's not about what the Ravens did to the Browns and the Chiefs did against the Chargers. It's about how the Ravens and the Chiefs match up. Very similar. Like, just because you might match up well with Tennessee and beat Tennessee, maybe with, say, I don't know, South Carolina, which isn't maybe as good as Tennessee, but they just match up with you better. So that's one of the mistakes we make so much. And every week we make a referendum on what's going to happen the rest of the year.
Yeah, and especially this year, that's going to be a challenge just because there's so many unknowns. I mean, even if Missouri does lose this week, which obviously they're favored to do that shouldn't be a big referendum on this season being a failure. Stuff like that. I've seen some posts like this is the most important game for Missouri since saying it's like, well, it's not really, because if they lose, what's the harm? That there's no bowl standings this season. They're not going to go to the SEC title game unless something just insane happens. But anyway, I will say, the question being, what would a win mean? I mean, a win would obviously be just huge for momentum and, establishing kind of, goodwill with the fan base and building kind of some energy around the Missouri program for recruiting. I mean, I still think the best thing you can do as a coach is win early, because people love to cling to their first impressions. Mm-hmm. And if they like you early, they'll wait. It's a lot harder for them to, it'll be harder to be proven wrong versus coming around to someone who maybe starts slow. So yeah, I mean, it would certainly be big to get an upset this early in Eli Drinkwitz's tenure, but I don't think obviously, a loss is any sort of a devastating thing.
It brings up, and I wrote about this a little bit in the mailbag. Like you said, winning early is so big. The second game of Barry Odom's career, they had Georgia on the ropes. I mean, Drew Lock looked like a superstar. So, by the way, did Jacob Eason. I mean, I remember I was talking to Anthony Dasher from our Georgia side at halftime, and I said, dude, we're looking at the future of the SEC East here, because these kids are unbelievable. Neither one of them ever really became that, obviously, in college. But, I mean, Missouri had the lead by, I guess it was 6, because they lost that game, I think, by a point. So I think they had a 27-21 lead, and Georgia's facing 4th and goal from the 20, and basically there was some miscommunication. Somebody ran the wrong defense, and I want to say it was McCole Hardman that got loose for the game-winning touchdown.
I think it was Isaiah McKenzie.
Isaiah McKenzie, you're right. Yeah. I knew it was a small Georgia receiver who got drafted into the NFL. One of those two is still there. The other one, I don't know, is he?
I think Isaiah McKenzie's still there, believe it or not, even though he was a terrible, terrible Bronco. Okay. But I think he still plays for the Bills.
But
gosh, he was bad.
Point being, I'm getting derailed on this, but point being, if Missouri hangs on to that lead and beats Georgia in Barry Odom's second game, how much does it change about how his tenure goes? I don't know. Maybe it changes nothing. Maybe he still gets fired, all that. But what you're saying is good. And beating Tennessee this weekend, it's not quite the equivalent of what beating that Georgia team would have been, but it's a very good, solid win. No question about it. So it would be a big deal for Drinkwitz, for this team, for this fan base, everything like that. And kind of feeding into that, Colby wants to know, if they pull off an upset, is 500 a real possibility? I mean, it's one. I think we both picked them 3-7. So if they win this one, we would theoretically have them 4-6. But does this one mean you think they're going to win another one? Again, it's so much about matchups and how are they playing. I mean, like last year, there were a couple games in the second half of the season that I certainly would have picked Missouri to win. But by the time they played those games, I would not have picked Missouri to beat the Hickman JV, so I picked them to lose that game, despite having picked them to win it 2 months ago. It makes 500 possible, but I don't know if you'd say likely.
So, Gabe, are you saying that Arkansas was worse than the Hickman JV?
I mean, I'm saying it would have been a game. I can't definitively say they were worse, but I can definitely not definitively say they were better.
Yeah. No, but I mean, to the question, does winning this game mean they will go 500? No. Does it make it a realistic possibility? Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's you'll be 1-1, you'll be 500, and yeah, we both picked him to go 3-7 with a loss in this game, so you'd be one closer.
Yeah. So moving on, Alex, do you think Drinkwitz will be more, less, or similarly aggressive with play calling this Saturday? I think more. And Mitch, you brought it up in the postgame press conference. There was, what would you say, really only one downfield shot? I mean, Connor Bazelak tried.
When Sean Robinson was in, yes. Actually, I went back and looked. Sean Robinson only attempted one pass that traveled more than 12 yards in the air, and that was to Tyler Beatty, the touchdown. Right. He only attempted 3 total passes, including that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Even the one to Beatty, I mean, that's not a deep shot. Yeah, it went 20-ish yards in the air, but that's not a deep ball.
Right. So, and then, but yeah, only 3, I think, went more than 10 yards total. Bazelak threw a little bit, a couple more downfield. Again, no vertical deep shot necessarily, but yeah, I think partially that was a concern about the offensive line. You weren't sure how they were going to hold up, and you didn't want to get a quarterback killed in the first game. But also, I think, in a game where maybe I think they'd be more likely to take a couple more of those shots. And he said after the game, like, yeah, that was on me. Maybe I should have called a couple more of those. So I would expect to see at least 1 or 2 more downfield shots there.
And obviously being aggressive is about more than just, are you throwing the ball deep? I mean, it's, what are you doing on 4th down? What are you doing in 2nd and 1? Are you just picking up the first down? Are you taking a shot? While he said they might be more aggressive, also in a way, he admitted they should have been a little more conservative and handed the ball to Larry Roundtree a lot more, because that was actually the one thing that pretty much worked the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think, but the handing the ball to Larry Roundtree is taking the place of other plays that were either literal runs or essentially runs, the passes out to the flat and quick screen, stuff like that. So I don't know if that's, far less aggressive. I mainly, brought up the deep ball thing because I do think like that's the one area where you can definitively say, I expect that to change. The rest, I don't know yet, just because we don't, have a great knowledge base with this system yet.
Right. Okay. Scrolling through, and look, you may know more about this than I do. I don't really know it yet, to be honest. Some Tennessee players you need to watch for. I mean, I can tell you that Jarrett Guarantano is in his 23rd year as the Tennessee quarterback. I believe he started his first game in, I think he took over for T. Martin under Phil Fulmer back in like 1999. He is still there. They've got a new receiving core. They had, and his name slipped my mind right now. They had a defensive end who had 2.5 sacks last week and played.
Yeah, I think he was like DeAndre Johnson. His last name was definitely Johnson.
His name, DeAndre Johnson. Yeah. Honestly, Tennessee's best player is probably their left tackle, Trey Smith.
And they got a offensive lineman just ruled eligible like half an hour ago.
Was that
actually,
Cade Mays? He
finally Georgia transfer.
Okay.
I don't know. I assume he'll be able to play right away. I mean, he's probably been practicing. So, their offensive line actually should be solid. Guarantano is pretty hit and miss, and they have the defensive end who had, I think it was 3.5 sacks. And other than that, I don't yet know a lot about them. That's what I'm getting to. Tomorrow's my day. I write my previews.
Right. Monday and Tuesday, honestly, are kind of spent wrapping up last week, doing interviews from Missouri. Wednesday is kind of getting ready for this and all that. And then Thursday and Friday, Mitch dives in a little bit more to finding out about the other team. I frankly never pay attention to the other team. I mean, like I knew Jalen Waddle last week, but I actually take pride in like basketball games showing up and going, I don't know anybody on the other team, So I frequently do that. All right, let's see. Let's keep on scrolling through, and this has nothing to do with anything. I just enjoy the comment. Mitch, can you actually see the comments or not?
I can't see which ones I can see them, but I don't know which one you're pulling up.
Okay,
right now.
The one I'm pulling up is that this show is a before and after view of moderating the Tigers lair for 20 years. So Mitch will have the beard and no hair. Actually, I don't know, man. You got good genes. I think you get a chance to keep your hair. Certainly longer than I did. Yeah. So, okay. We're trying to catch up. Okay. Dominic Jacinto comes alive. Dooley couldn't find a way to get him the ball. Another failure under Odom, and Jacinto showed talent with Locke as QB. I mean, But Odom was the coach and Dooley was the coordinator when he was good as a true freshman. So it's not necessarily their fault. Look, I was actually amazed when I wrote something in my Monday Thoughts on Dominic. I was amazed. I looked back. PFF College had him for 2 drops last year. I honestly could have sworn it was 3 times that. I mean, it seemed like he just had trouble catching the ball last year. There's no other way to put it. He had trouble holding on, and therefore his playing time suffered. But he made some plays. He had a crossing route that went for 20-something on that last drive, and he made some plays in that game. And him and Jalen Knox, like you said, were guys that you kind of looked at and said, hey, maybe there's a little bit of something here.
Yeah, he's still fast. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest thing last year was, the whole passing game just totally broke down. Dom Jacinto's a guy who, he's not going to win a lot of contested catches. He's like 4'7", so he's gotta get open.
I think he's as tall as I am.
Okay, well, he seems short to me, but he's a guy who's gonna have to, he's gonna have to get some separation and then get hit in stride. And Missouri wasn't doing a whole lot of that last season. They weren't completing a lot of passes to begin with, and the ones they were to Barrett Bannister because he could, get open 3 yards downfield and hang on to the ball. And Bannister kind of took some of Jacinto's playing time. Like you said, he did struggle. He was also banged up last season. But yeah, it's certainly good to see him getting back established because, he does have, pretty, I don't want to say like elite. He's not Jalen Waddle, but he's fast. He's got speed that shows up on the film. So just another weapon, which certainly helps.
I said that you brought up Jalen Waddle. I said this earlier today on a different show, and frankly, I may have stolen it from somebody in our game comments, but he reminded me a little bit of Jeremy Maclin. Like, that's the last guy I saw play on Furrow Field that looked like that. And a couple of that play he made down the middle between double coverage, it absolutely got blasted. I forget if it was by Bledsoe or Gillespie, but
I think it was Gillespie.
You can't teach that. That was he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he looks like maybe the first receiver off the board in the draft, and especially when you combine that with his special teams abilities, he's special.
All right, John wants to know if you've done matchup analysis with Tennessee and what are the weaknesses. Mitch, you usually do that like midday Friday, right?
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it yet. I can tell you that their offensive line is looked at as a strong suit. Their pass rush was really good last week, and according to our rivals Tennessee site, they gave up a lot of completions over the middle, which Missouri has some guys that hopefully should be able to work that area of the field, but that's pretty surface level. I'll dive more into that tomorrow and have it on the site Friday.
Jacob says Tennessee didn't look much better than South Carolina. Are they as good as their ranking? Was it just a bad game for them, good game for South Carolina? How big an upset if Mizzou wins? Are they as good as their ranking? It kind of depends on what week we're ranking, right? Some weeks Big Ten teams can't be voted for. Then they can be. Kentucky last week fell from like 16 to unranked simply by losing a fairly competitive game against Auburn. There was actually a team who won last week and fell 7 spots out of the rankings because the rankings are just made up this year. They're always made up, but they're especially made up this year.
I think that I hope that's one of my hopes for this season is that this just gets everyone to stop paying attention to the rankings before the college football playoff top 25 comes out.
There is a thread on our board that has 40 replies about bowl predictions. All you have to do to get people to read your crap these days is just publish a list or a prediction, and everybody's going to read it. We're talking bowl predictions when 50 teams haven't even played a game. I don't know how and literally everyone is eligible. So you know what's going to happen this year? Nebraska's going to go 2-6, and they're going to get invited to the freaking Holiday Bowl because those people want to get the hell out of Lincoln in mid-December, and they will go to San Diego in hordes, and so the Holiday Bowl will make money. So bowl predictions are stupid. Polls are stupid, but the point remains, was last week a bad game for Tennessee or a good game for South Carolina? Now, look, truth be told, and I've said this 100 times, you guys see more college football than we do. That game was played at the same time as Missouri. So while you're probably flipping channels a little bit and maybe watching a game cast and doing stuff with that Tennessee game. Mitch and I saw 0 plays of it. I know I looked at the box score on Sunday morning, and it was a very even game. Like, you could not tell by looking at the stats who won the game. Tennessee had 3 or 4 sacks, and they had a pick 6. And I think that was really the difference. But I think week 1, I don't know if I can say it was good or bad for either team, because I don't think we really know what either team is yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we just don't know. I don't know how good South Carolina is. I mean, they were good enough to play a lot of teams close last season. They almost beat Florida, I believe. So among other teams, I think, I think it's easy to say maybe Tennessee's a little overrated. They're one of those programs that seems to win the offseason more often than they win the regular season, with the recruiting. I will say this, though. I mean, winning 7 straight games is hard to do, and there is something to be said for that. I mean, just kind of having a team that knows how to pull a game out, that is, helpful when you get into close games. And I think that a lot of these, middle tier SEC teams, you're talking, South Carolina, the Mississippi schools, Kentucky, throw Mizzou in there. They're probably going to play games that are, within 2 scores. So being able to not make that costly play, if you have that established, that could help. I don't know. I mean, Tennessee, do they deserve to be number 21? No. Do they deserve to be favored over Missouri at this point, based on what we've seen? I'd say so.
And last I saw, it was somewhere between 10 and 12. But tell me what you think about this. 2009. So last year's Tennessee is 2018 Missouri. They finished on a 6-game winning streak. They beat absolutely no one any good. I mean, all they did is beat bad teams, right? But the dirty secret about playing major college football, even in the big bad SEC, which they can't tell you enough how good it is, all you got to do to win 7 or 8 games a year is beat bad teams. I mean, you beat 3 or 4 bad teams in the non-conference. You beat the crappy bottom feeders in your own league, and you're at 7-5. All you got to do is win one swing game. You're an 8-4 team going to beat big bad Indiana in the Music City Bowl, which is what Tennessee did last year. Now, that does not mean,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that does not mean Tennessee's not good this year, right? Just because 2019 Tennessee was 2018 Missouri does not mean 2020 Tennessee is 2019 Missouri. They might be a very good team this year. They might manage to take that momentum. But the truth is, if you look back at the second half of Tennessee's season, if you look at this 7-game win streak, what's impressive? What do you look at and say, yeah, that's really – I mean, they threw for 420 yards against Missouri last year and scored 24 points.
Yeah.
And had to kind of hang on to beat a bad Missouri team. So, I don't know. We'll see. Again, Tennessee may be a really good team this year, but I'm not quite sold on it yet. But they do, again, deserve to be probably a 10-point favorite over Mizzou. All right, Andy, not a current Mizzou topic, but if there's time, Alden Smith's resurgence, still a stud. What kind of career could he have had if not for the off-field setbacks? I mean, I've said 2 things about it. And first of all, I want to say good for Alden, man. It's great. Good for him. In all seriousness, I hope this is real. I hope he stays clean. I hope he stays on the football field and becomes a superstar again, which he was tracking Hall of Fame the first 3 years of his career. And but Alden Smith's resurgence proves, I think, 2 things. First of all, it proves just how freakishly athletic he is. I mean, beyond any, obviously even beyond any NFL football player. And it also proves, if you are that freakishly athletic, how many chances you are going to get to go play a game. I mean, I'm not trashing the kid, but given that background, and look, I understand addiction. I'm not blaming him. I'm not shaming him at all. But many people don't get that many chances at a job if they have Alden Smith's past.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed it up. I mean, obviously he's, just in terms of talent, he's just been one of the more talented defensive ends we've seen in the NFL over the past decade, in the top probably 10-20. Yeah, I'm happy for him as well. I think it's a cool story. Yeah, it is remarkable that, I mean, to come back and play after, I think it's been like 5 years since he played a game. So good for him. Hope he keeps it up. You covered it pretty well.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, honestly, they make movies about. I mean, they made, that 30 for 30 on Marcus Dupree. Really similar deal. Marcus Dupree ripped up his knee when ripping up your knee was, one of the, it was almost a career ender, to be quite honest. And came back and actually made it to the NFL, which is pretty impressive. But, yeah, good for Alden. Glad to see it. I remember seeing him as a true freshman, and he had clearinghouse issues because you saw him in fall camp, and you were like, oh, my God, this kid's an absolute freak show. And then he had clearinghouse issues. He had to go home for a couple weeks. Didn't end up playing as a true freshman, but you knew everything was there. So, all right, let's see. Okay, Keegan, yes, the former employee rule still applies for now because I like the question. Like, if you ask a crappy question, we're not going to use it, Keegan. But this is a solid question. Which program do you both think is the most consistently overrated? Tennessee, Texas A&M, Texas, or Nebraska? Mitch, I'm going to let you take this one first because I most definitely have my answer.
Well, probably Texas A&M because they're talked about as like a national champion caliber every year, which is just I mean, they've never even been close. At the same time,
1938, Mitch, 1938 national champion.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I mean, Nebraska's been like awful. Like they've been in, they haven't been the same level of preseason hype as Texas A&M, but they might have been further away. So like A&M has had more hype and probably a bigger disappointment just in that, like, it's like, we're dropping $1 billion into paying for this, and this, giving Jimbo a 10-year contract and, nothing to show for it so far. But I'm going to go with Nebraska just because they not only have they not been top 25 good, they've been irrelevant. I mean, they've been, other than when they're throwing fits, like they've been a sub 500 program. They've been, just bad. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Nebraska and Tennessee are the same program. Like they're the same thing, except Nebraska's past is a little more recent and a little better than Tennessee, but it's the same program. It's the same fan base. I just call Tennessee SEC Nebraska or call Nebraska Big Ten Tennessee, whatever. It's the same thing. Texas, look, there is no better college football soundbite to just drop in places than Joe Tessitore screaming Texas is back. It's the greatest thing in the history of college football. They are most definitively not back after giving up 56 points to Texas Tech, which snuck past Houston Baptist the week before they played. But the most overrated program in college football is Texas A&M. I mean, those other teams have won national titles, and they've all done it in the last 25 years. Texas A&M, they won a national title in 1938 with John David Crow. That's like, come on, man. No, it's A&M, and it's not close. And they were ranked, I don't know, 12 or something. And they beat Vandy 17-12.
Every year they wind up in the top 10 somehow. It's ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah. So they're going to lose to Alabama this week. Watch, they'll go beat Alabama, and I have to pretend I like them on next.
Also, I should give Keegan, shout out Keegan, congrats on your engagement. Meant to do that last week, but Keegan and Lauren engaged big time. Go for them. All right, moving on.
All right. Congratulations. I had no idea. All right. What about David Dowell? You got any shout outs for him?
No, I don't know who that is. Sorry, David.
Well, he's our next comment. He does have a fishing picture. You guys might hang out. You might be friends.
Really? I'll look at it.
Post-game, he seemed relatively happy with the offensive line compared to what everyone else seemed to think. What are your thoughts? I don't know if he was happy with how they played as much as he was happy with how they competed. I mean, the offensive line last week can be summed up by the best ability is availability, right? We don't know if that's the starting line. That's the guys he had.
Yeah, to me, Drinkwitz's post-game comments about the offensive line showed me that he was not trying to downplay it during camp. He was terrified that unit might get everyone killed on Saturday. I mean, First of all, he brought it up every time we talked to him, like, yeah, the offensive line, I'm not sure. And then in the teleconference before the game, like, he had a chance to, like, talk good about this transfer kid who just came in and was going to start at left tackle. And he was like, all I can really say about him is he's been healthy. Like, it was like, oh, okay, I guess this might be bad. And then he didn't, really throw any downfield passes. I think that offensive line exceeded expectations just by, like, not holding every play or getting someone murdered. And I'm not trying to say they were terrible, because they weren't. Right. They did a decent job blocking on the interior for Roundtree. And at least one or two of the sacks Sean Robinson had some time. He just held on to the ball too long. So yeah, I'm not trying to say that it's terrible, but I also think that Drinkwitz's optimism was more like, yeah, we didn't have everyone we thought we were going to have. We've had some opt-outs, some season-ending injuries, and I was actually really worried.
Yeah. So yeah, we can confirm nobody got murdered. On that subject, I may or may not early third quarter have texted some friends on Monday night and said, Baltimore PD, I would like to report a murder. And then it looked like I might have to regret that a little bit later. But fortunately, I mean, the corpse survived, but it wasn't pretty. So, okay. As for now, this is our last question. If you got more, feel free to hit us up. We'll stick around if there's more. But it appears Trajan Jeffcoat and Trey Williams at least got to the quarterback on Saturday. Because we should all draw conclusions after the first game, can they do enough this year to really help this defense? So I had two thoughts on Saturday. Good for Trajan Jeffcoat, very impressive to do what he did after a year off, come back and a game against Alabama, get a sack, all that. And also, I don't think it's great if your best pass rusher is a guy who hadn't been on a football field for 2 years. Those were my two thoughts.
Those were my exact thoughts as well. I wrote that at some point during the many things I wrote on Saturday.
This would be a better show if we disagreed more.
Yeah, it really would. We end up we talk like a lot about these things.
One of us has to be the outrageous Skip Bayless character on this show.
You're right. I'll work on that. I'll work on that during the course of the week. Although you've had better outrage than me at the points during this show. Like your outrage. What was it about? I don't remember. A few minutes ago, you were outraged about the bowl games.
I get outraged
and the bowl predictions. The bowl predictions. Oh yeah. Anyway, So anyway, I think Trajan Jeffcoat looked good. He looked promising. But two things. One, he and Trey Williams actually play the same position, that new stand-up linebacker position. And I asked Ryan Walters today, and he said he's not willing to move those guys over, and it's not interchangeable between that position and the position that Chris Turner and Isaiah McGuire were playing, where they were kind of invisible. So that
I asked this honestly. Did Isaiah McGuire play?
Yeah, I think he played like 30 snaps.
Oh, really? Okay. That's not great. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
No, I just didn't notice it.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, he was the lowest graded PFF player, so bummer for him. Hopefully he gets better. But then Trey Williams, I just wasn't sold on after Saturday, and he's talented. He always has been, but he didn't really make a play in my mind especially as a pass rusher until the starting tackle was out. So I forget his name. Alabama's starting tackle was out of the game. That's when Mizzou got their sacks. I think Trajan Jeffcoat will probably continue to play more, but I do think, like I said, Ryan Walters knows more than me. He said don't overreact, but I think the pass rush is a concern going forward. Absolutely.
I agree. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up with two comments and questions that are kind of related. Mitch is not going to enjoy them. Well, then, because they're not from Bob Martin or whoever your big fan is. He appears to have just hit and run and disappeared on the show. But then we'll run through the rest of the SEC real quick. So Keegan was emboldened by your congratulations and asked, Gabe, do you take more joy in the Broncos being 0-3 or the Chiefs being 3-0? And Mitch, which do you dislike more? I'll be honest, like, I don't. The Broncos are just another team to me now. Like, I hated them for so long. John Elway, hated him. Peyton Manning, hated him. But like the last few years, they haven't been good enough for me to hate. So I don't take any joy in them being 0-3. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mitch, you kind of like them being 0-3 because they're in the running for the number one pick.
Well, I didn't think that this would be a team that needed to be in the running for the number one pick this year. That's the thing. This is the first time I've had any semblance of expectations for the Broncos since the year they won the Super Bowl. They finally think they've got the franchise quarterback. They went out and spent some money on the defense, spent some draft capital to get Drew Lock some weapons, and then everyone got hurt. Everyone. The top 4 paid players are all either on IR or have opted out, and that doesn't include the starting quarterback or the Pro Bowl wide receiver. It's a total disaster. At this point, though, you might as well keep losing. I got to lose to the Jets this week because otherwise you give them the inside track on Trevor Lawrence. I like Drew Lock, but if you get a chance to get the number 1 pick, you might as well go for it. I like Trevor Lawrence, or someone else will pay a lot for him. So
if you manage over a 16-week NFL season to be worse than the New York Jets are this year, that is one hell of an achievement.
Well, the Broncos are starting Brett Rippon, so
what happened to Jeff Driscoll? He's not good anymore.
No, he's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah, he was never good. He wasn't even good at Florida.
Brett Rippon also probably not good. All right, last question.
He was good at Boise, at least.
Last question for Gabe from Jacob was Monday Night Football Patrick's shrug game. I only throw this in because I came up with what I think is I'm actually pretty proud of this analogy. So all the lead up to the Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, all that. I actually texted Sam Mellinger. I said his next column should just be a picture of Mahomes and a picture of Jackson, and then the Michael Jordan meme. That's when it became personal to me, because that's what Monday night was, right? That was Mahomes going, all right, let's have a chat about this. That was his. Lamar Jackson was his. Who was the poor guy that Jordan got all pissed off at for somehow disrespecting him, even though it was completely made up.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch the Last Dance.
I didn't watch the whole Last Dance.
That was a. Did you say you didn't watch it?
I watched some of it. I didn't finish it. I should have, but I didn't.
Well, I guess you were 2 when Jordan won his last title, so.
Yeah.
That's a shame. All right, so we're gonna finish this up by running through the SEC schedule this week. We're not gonna make Mizzou predictions yet because we do that on the site on Friday afternoon, but I'm going to put this I'm going to put our ticker up so you guys can kind of see the games, and we'll roll through them. South Carolina and Florida. I don't know. Florida, I guess, is Florida the best team in the East? Do we think that?
I'm not ready to go there yet. Probably yes, but I'm not ready to say that definitively. Georgia's getting JT Daniels now. If he should be better than whatever they had playing quarterback this past week.
Wait,
and
so
I need to see
did they play
Florida
3
beat Georgia.
quarterbacks last week and he wasn't one of them?
Yes, correct. He wasn't cleared to play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did Jake
so
Fromm play
that should
last
help
week
things.
for them? Eric Zier, Aaron Murray.
Yeah, I think it was Matt Stafford actually played. Actually, no, they probably would have been better with him. Yeah. I gotta see Florida beat Georgia at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Florida should win this game. The line is something ridiculous. At least last I saw, it's like 22 points, which is way too big. I think it'll probably be closer than that. I think Florida's defense still has a little bit of proving to do, but they should certainly beat South Carolina.
Yeah. The next game is Texas A&M and Alabama. We have already established that Texas A&M is overrated. Alabama at number 2, maybe underrated?
Properly rated, at least.
Yeah. At the very least, they are the second best team in the country. But the gap between number 1 and number 2 in the SEC is equivalent to the gap between number 2 and what? Number 7?
Well, yeah, because I don't know who's number. I don't even know who's number 2 right now. Maybe Auburn right now.
Or Florida, I would say.
Yeah, it's like Alabama, and then there's a group there of like Auburn, Georgia, and Florida, and then there's a pretty big drop off. I don't know. So it's probably
then you get to like LSU,
number,
Kentucky, Mississippi
it's
State.
Like number 1 and number 2 is to number 2 and number 5. I'll say. How about that?
That's fair. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Hard.
All right, so those are the first couple games, Missouri and Tennessee, obviously also a morning game. And then next up in the afternoon, Ole Miss and Kentucky, 2 teams that just, they both lost. They both did some good things. I don't think Ole Miss's uniforms were really cool. They can't stop anybody. Tennessee,
Kentucky
has a really good defense. I don't know if they have any offense.
No, I don't think you need any offense to score against Ole Miss. I think we could probably score against them. I mean, yeah, I think Ole Miss is a long way from being there. I think they've got some rebuilding to do. I think Kentucky takes care of business in that one.
Yeah, and then I got to waste a couple seconds because I'm waiting for our ticker to roll back because I did not memorize the SEC schedule, so I have to see who plays after Ole Miss in Kentucky. Auburn and Georgia. I think this is actually the battle for like number 2A in the SEC. I mean, because Florida's going to be in that conversation.
This is a huge game because both teams still have to play Alabama. And obviously, it's going to be hard you don't want to have two losses, especially if you're Georgia. If you have two losses, then you're playing the West champion, probably Alabama again later.
And that's if really you beat Florida.
Of getting in the playoff. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So this game's really big, just to kind of keep playoff hopes alive. I mean, obviously it's not really a playoff elimination game yet because you don't know what's going to happen, but the winner will be in far, far better shape than the loser.
I haven't checked the bowl projections and seen which one of those teams is in the playoffs yet, but I'll let you know by tomorrow morning what's going to happen. Arkansas at Mississippi State. I mean, clearly Mike Leach's offense is never going to work in the SEC. Like it's just not going to happen. There's no way he's going to have a guy throw for 623 yards in week 1 against the defending national champions. Good luck, Barry Odom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Mississippi State will have a little bit of a hangover, but they should still be able to get it together enough to, throw for 500 yards in that one.
At the end of the year, when Arkansas is 0-10, they're always going to have that first half where they led Georgia. So
it was exciting. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of hoping Barry Odom would just go ahead and pitch a shutout.
Oh, 100%. That would have been funny.
Mean, that would be an all-time mic drop moment there.
That would have been good. All right, so last game, LSU at Vanderbilt. Look, the only thought I have on this is it's a shame that fans can't go to this game because the last time LSU played at Vanderbilt 2 years ago, the stadium literally was sold out of beer. They had to call a beer truck in to bring more.
Yeah, that was one of the great college football moments, really, of all time. I would have to say, even though LSU did not look great last week.
Ross Dellinger needs to write a book about that.
That would he would be the person to write it, no doubt. LSU and drinking, very much Ross's wheelhouse. LSU looked not very good last week. Vanderbilt looked a little better than expected. LSU still winning that game by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So, all right. Look, second show in the books. I think it largely happened. It appears to have gone out on the internet. That's good.
That's always good.
Mitchell has a headset and a microphone and
That's right. I'm professional now.
Yeah, guys. This is a damn professional operation. Saturday morning, 9:15. We're gonna do pregame. 11 a.m. kickoff. We're going to Skype Mitch in for the watch along this week because they are on the road. We're not traveling to road games this year. And then post game at some point after that. Fortunately, it will be over before 12:30 this week. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks once again to 573Tees. Check them out, 573Tees. That's TEES.com. Again, go to the story on the front page of our website, and you can get a discount for being a Power Mizzou subscriber and finding out about them from Power Mizzou. Thanks to all you guys for taking part. I don't know, Mitch, any parting words?
Not really. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna go watch the NBA Finals. So,
all right, I'm just gonna send us out here with a couple of these sound effects I learned. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. So there's only 6 of them. I'll use more next week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.